What's going on, friends? Welcome to another weekly live stream. Excited to have you with me this evening, morning, wherever you are. Give me 1 second. I just want to try because I started streaming now to X also. So not sure if that works. Let me just double check because first time I'm doing that. So hopefully it works as well. Trying to, kind of new channels. But yeah, it seems we're live there as well, which is cool. Good. Yeah. So welcome to another stream. And obviously, as always, I want to kind of just go through a couple of news updates that came across my desk, so to say, that I found relevant, and then review a bit the markets, see how the situation is doing. And then towards the end, answer some of your questions and see what's on your mind and maybe how I can help you with any of your questions. But first up, of course, the big question today, we have the Fed over in the US. Coming up with their interest rate decision. So it should be in an hour from now. So let's see how long the live stream will go. Maybe we'll still have it towards the end of it. But essentially, as every so often, they come out with their interest rate decision, obviously, which will have major impacts globally, right? Because usually the US leads, right? Depending how much they cut, other countries and central banks will cut accordingly. Most likely, we're going to see another cut, especially when we look at pulley market, which, as you may remember, was extremely correct when it came to the US elections. I haven't actually used it much in the past, but you can see you have all these very popular sort of elections and basically anything you want to bet on going on. And you can see over here the biggest one right now is obviously, you can see the volume, $58 million. People are sort of betting on that decision of what will happen. And well, it seems very clear favorite. It will be a drop by 25 basis points, meaning 0.25%. So we shall see, but I think that's a clear indication, which honestly is, at first I was like, what are these betting sites? But it gives you a sort of good gauge of what people are thinking, and often it can, it doesn't have to, but it can lead you towards the right way. So I would probably also assume a similar direction of cuts. I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think we're going to see, 0.5% or more than that. That wouldn't make sense. The only other one would be no change. But even that, I think they alluded to earlier that they want to continue cutting. Actually, Trump was quite keen to cut more. So I think while they're still, having the control and power, they want to do some more of the cuts. But ultimately, for us as investors, I think it's a good thing. Because obviously, usually what it means is you get less money on your savings, means people have to look, to put their money elsewhere, because at the bank account, you're going to get less interest, less than your money is losing towards inflation, your purchasing power is going down. So ultimately, people tend to, not always, but tend to put more money towards investments, obviously into stocks, ETFs, and of course, crypto markets, which you've seen, and we'll come to this a bit later. But so I'm quite bullish on that. And also, don't forget, if you're having a mortgage, a loan, they will become cheaper, right? Because the interest rates will go down. So there's winners and losers. But yeah, ultimately, you don't want to stay too much in cash right now, because I think it's a great way to deploy it into the markets and hopefully benefit from some appreciation over there. What else? We have, just out today, there's a potential talks of a merger between Nissan and Honda. Again, you may not be, invested in those companies necessarily, but obviously these are huge Japanese car makers. And if they were to merge, I believe they would make they said here, the third biggest company. So basically they would just be behind Toyota and Volkswagen, which are number 1 and number 2 in terms of size of car manufacturers in the world. So really interesting move. And more interesting, I found that, for example, when you look at the Honda stock market, and again, they're not listed, I believe, in they are in NASDAQ listed. But you see sort of a flatlining over here. But when you're going to go to Nissan, actually that news really sent the stock up quite tremendously. You see here up 23% just from the news alone. So if I go over here for the last 5 days, you can really see the jump. So interestingly, again, not companies, not an industry I would want to invest in. I think the automotive industry is definitely not in the strongest position, and again, not something I would like to put my money in. But if you were to allocate some of your funds, maybe it could be something to look into more deeply. Now, on the contrary, what I'm really excited about is, of course, the upcoming edition of Palantir and MicroStrategy and Exxon, which I'm not too familiar with, but they are joining the NASDAQ 100 index next week. So that's really exciting. Basically, NASDAQ 100, they rebalance their index once a year, I believe. And that's usually done in December. So that's coming up next week. And well, with Palantir and MicroStrategy and obviously Exxon doing rather well, market capitalization going up, they're fitting a lot of the requirements that you need to tick in order to join the NASDAQ. And Palantir, actually, funnily enough, they used to be listed on the New York Stock Exchange. So as such, you could not enter and participate in the NASDAQ 100, right? Because you have to be listed on the NASDAQ. So the NASDAQ is also a stock exchange, like the New York Stock Exchange or many others around the world, London Stock Exchange. So NASDAQ is one of them. So to be included in the NASDAQ 100, naturally, you have to be part of the NASDAQ stock exchange. So they switched some time ago, and I'm really excited about this because obviously I don't own any of those companies individually, but I have opened an ETF position in the NASDAQ 100 a couple of months ago, and so far has been doing rather well. And I think now with strong companies like Palantir, especially Palantir, which I used to own individually in the past, sadly I sold, I think it was like $9 or $10. So yes, I know I missed out quite a bit of gains, but I'm fine with this, right? Sometimes you lose some, sometimes you win some, but that's fine. But now that this company, which I still think has a long way to go and appreciate in the long term, is part of the NASDAQ 100, I, as a NASDAQ 100 ETF investor, and so do you if you happen to invest in that ETF, will benefit from the strong performance, right? Same when we invest in the S&P 500. If Apple does well, Tesla does well, Microsoft, all those top companies, I will boost the entire S&P performance. And so the same will be over here with NASDAQ. And MicroStrategy, I mean, I'll speak about this in a second, but that's a very special case because with the crypto rally, that will fuel the MicroStrategy price, which in return will fuel the Bitcoin price. So it's kind of self-fulfilling prophecy and doing really well right now. So yeah, I think it will be a great boost to their share price as well. What else do we have? We have, maybe you heard about Google's breakthrough in quantum computing. Now, again, that's really, the more I read about quantum computing, the less I understand. But obviously, it's the next level of and the future of computers, of chips. It's so much faster, so much better, and just incredible, obviously, progress that they've made over there. And we haven't really seen use cases of that yet, but I think it will roll out eventually, and we're going to have quantum computing more and more, available in the coming years. I have no doubt about it. But I'm really happy that Google was the one sort of coming out with this news first, and because we've been seeing them really battered in recent times, right? They had so many, sort of bad press and really flops. When they came out with their AI development, a lot of things they put out shortly after had to take back because of certain things going wrong. We have now the fact that most likely they will break up Chrome, or at least there's the talks that they have to break up Chrome from Google because they have a monopoly on that, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. At the same time, they're coming out with quantum computing. So I'm really happy for Google because I still think it's a huge company. I forgot about also ChatGPT coming out with search, right? So in the past, everybody went to Google something, right? Now, I don't know about you, but personally, when I need an answer, I hardly ever go on Google. I mean, I still do, but most of the time I go on ChatGPT search and use that. Sometimes Perplexity. So I think they've really been struggling for quite a bit. So I'm excited for Google to make a comeback over here. The same actually with their new Gemini 2.0. I don't know if you tried that. And again, I'm a big AI lover. I tried many of the different tools. It's actually really good. I'll probably make a separate video about this. One cool thing that I really like, that you can sort of screen share your screen. So I was recently doing a video edit, tried to edit a video on my laptop, and I didn't know where something was. So I screen shared my screen with Gemini and asked it where a certain thing is, and it was guiding me through. It was crazy. It was literally like somebody looking over your shoulder and telling you where to click. So really mind-boggling. So I'm really happy that sort of Google is shaping up, and we see over to their stock price. Let's see if that sort of translated, because they were down quite a bit over recent weeks. But I think they made a bit of a comeback, which is obviously nice to see. Where are we year to date? Well, up 40%, which is definitely not too shabby. But you see, especially since September, a nice comeback over here. I think that's when the story started with sort of the negative press. But since then, they definitely made a nice comeback to at least be sort of in line with where we are. 40% sounds nice, but when you consider that the S&P is up, how much are we up on the S&P? Let me pull that one up over here. For the year, 28%, which is also mind-boggling when you think about it. Right, so while we're here, let's have a look at some of those other stocks that are being actively traded. Of course, Bitcoin very much. Tesla keeps on being traded. Such an interesting company. I mean, it's so hot. Like, honestly, I always say that if somebody gave me 100K to invest, either in Tesla or Bitcoin, definitely Bitcoin for me is way less volatile than Tesla. Obviously, year to date, where we hear 91% up. I mean, great. If you invested, well done. For me, it's just too volatile and depends on so many things beyond the actual company performance. But yeah, obviously you can make a nice financial gains from it. I have no doubt about that. We have Nvidia up as well, which is good. No surprise here. 175% for the year. I mean, yeah, they just keep on going from new highs to new highs. When people say it's too much growth, they keep on coming up with new. I think they also came up today with some new chip that they've been working on. So yeah, really impressive performance from the company over there. What else do we have? Let's pull up the commodities. Gold, no surprise, slightly down. And again, I said it before, even though, I mean, I still have to give credit to gold. 1 year performance up 30%. But I personally think that's about to change in the long term. Long term, we'll come to this in a second. I just see no world where Bitcoin will be less valuable than gold in, I don't know. I don't want to say the years, maybe 10 years, maybe 20 years, but I don't think that we're going to be living in the world where we have quantum computing, metaverse, AI, automations, artificial superintelligence, and we still hoard physical gold at home. I just don't see that world. Again, I might be wrong with that, but that's just my perception, my opinion. But of course, I also put my money where my thoughts are, and that's why I invest in Bitcoin and other things, and not in gold. But again, investing is obviously individual decisions. Let's have a look at the indices to see what's happening for the week across the different countries. And surprisingly, Nikkei, the Japanese, is still down despite that sort of good news with Nissan and Honda merger over there, which is interesting. The FTSE 100 slightly down as well. The S&P up, which is nice. I actually bought some more. I bought it yesterday when there was a down day. So yeah, I buy every single week. But of course, I'm trying to buy it on a day when it's slightly in the red. So I kind of psychologically get a little bit of a gain the next day, because I can track every single position every time I made it. So yeah, that's of course nice to see. We have the Dow Jones down quite a bit, which is interesting, when you compare, more tech-heavy indices like S&P or NASDAQ 100, and then you have sort of the legacy companies down, quite a bit more. But to be honest, no real surprises over there. We have our European friends, Spain down quite a bit. It's just, I think every time I do this, I usually see Europe in the red. I mean, that's just sad, but it's sadly the reality. Where are the Germans? Here we are. We have the DAX. So these are the biggest German companies over there. I think 40 by now. And then we have the tech DAX. So that's basically like the S&P 500 for Germany. And then we have the NASDAQ 100, sort of more tech focus, right? So, when you go into that and you see the 1 year performance, it actually outperformed even the actual DAX, which includes all sort of companies from all different industries. And we are up only 5% for the year, which is just crazy, absolutely crazy. And, as a German, obviously I'm not living there and haven't been living there many years, but I still, I would like to see German companies doing well, but it's just so sad to see. And it just shows there is no real innovation coming through anymore. And yeah, I mean, we see that in many other European companies. I mean, how many, thriving and really impressive, unique, innovative tech companies, global tech companies do you know from Europe? I mean, you can count them on a hand, right? So it's really unfortunate, but it is what it is. Actually, when I pull up here the biggest companies in Europe, let me just do that. If I can pull it up over here, let's reload it 1 second. That would be interesting to see. What do we have? By countries, we have Europe, and well, same story, right? I mean, you have literally Novo Nordisk, medical company, LVMH, old luxury company. Okay, SAP, you could consider a tech company, ASML as well, fine. Tech manufacturing, they do all the machinery for chip manufacturers, but then again, Hermes, luxury company, Accenture, I suppose, consulting company, L'Oreal, a beauty, Prosus, I'm not familiar with, Inditex, I believe that's also fashion. So yeah, I mean, contrast that with let me pull up United States. Well, you have tech. So it's just a huge difference, right? And again, that's why, you may or may not like tech, but that's just, the future, right? I don't think the future is in luxury, French haute couture necessarily. I'm sure they still do well, but probably if I compare gains, it's just a different ball game there than some of the other companies. But be it as it may. With this, let's switch gears to a bit more crypto related. And I was really happy to see. I mean, I wasn't familiar with the Ohio House of Representatives, but obviously, representatives from Ohio. They came up with the Ohio Bitcoin Reserve Act, where they're basically asking to have Bitcoin on the state treasury and authorizes the state treasurer to purchase Bitcoin. But even though it's not a requirement, but it wants to authorize them. So I think that's really bullish, right? And we heard the talks about this in the past, that potentially once Trump comes into office, central bank of the US might consider having some Bitcoin as a reserve fund, basically, which would be huge, because then, trust me, once that happens, and it's not guaranteed it will happen, but there's more and more signs pointing towards that, there would be a real race of all central banks around the world, not all, but many, to get their hands on Bitcoin, right? Like they did in the past with gold. Who can have the most amount of gold in the central banks? Then it will be a race to who can accumulate as much Bitcoin as possible. And I think that's real bullish news for the markets, even though they haven't actually priced it in yet. I'll show you in a second. But yeah, of course, as always, we have to look at our friend Michael Saylor, the founder of MicroStrategy, who has now $46 billion of Bitcoin on their on their balance sheets. Even though the company is now valued, you can see over here, the company is valued more than twice than that, and 93 billion. So really nice return. And well, what can I say? They kept on buying, and they just bought recently, 2 days ago at 100,000. So, when some of us think, is it not too expensive or not? Well, in his eyes, it's still undervalued. He bought 15,000 Bitcoin with a total value of $1.5 billion. I mean, just mind-boggling numbers. But yeah, I mean, good for him. It's obviously, it just shows that he continues to dollar cost average. Sometimes you buy high, sometimes you buy low. And that's what I would suggest everyone. Don't try to time the market. Should I now sell? Some people write me, should I now sell some of my ETFs? And of course, it's tempting, right? I was going through the same motions. Should I liquidate some of that and plow the money into the Bitcoin markets? And yeah, maybe some of it, but be mindful. Don't put it all at once, because I don't think we're going to see a drawdown in Bitcoin price of 80%. But could we see a correction of 20, 30, 40%? Yeah, potentially. So you don't want to be then left without any cash to invest anymore if we were to see such a buying opportunity. So always be mindful and just continue dollar cost average as Michael Saylor does as well. Yeah, when we look at the overall markets, we can of course see that for this week, the last 7 days overall, still a slight of growth in terms of Bitcoin, Ethereum. We have now seen that XRP actually flipped Tether to be the third most valuable coin in the world. So that's interesting. Previously, it was, I think when I did last week, Tether was still number 3. But you see here in terms of market capitalization, now it has, 2 billion more. So yeah, it just keeps on growing with XRP, with a nice strong performance over there. And then we have some of the other coins slightly coming down, but still, when we look at Solana, it definitely had a very good run so far. and some of the other coins, Dogecoin, continuing to hang in there and keep on growing. I mean, I'm just stunned. I remember when a couple of years ago it was already so hyped. I thought, okay, that's it. It has to fall down, but just hanging in there and keeps on jumping from new highs to new highs. So yeah, I mean, kudos to anyone who invested in that and a significant amount, right? Because I know some people said, yeah, I invest in Dogecoin, but then when I ask how much, they say, 100 euros or $200, whatever. Yeah, that's nice, but then, a 10x on $200 is still nice money to make. But obviously, would you plow 20,000 in Dogecoin if your total net worth was 100,000? Well, I would strongly advise you against doing that. But again, obviously, it's your money. What else I wanted to show you guys? And just in terms of Bitcoin again, because I really feel that now with so much attention and the price movement over 100,000, with Trump coming to office, with the ETFs in place, with the potential of having it as a central reserve across different banks, I really feel that there is the volatility is definitely gone. I think those crazy price movements that we saw here in the past, where it goes up and down and up and down. I think personally, again, I may be wrong, but I think that is definitely gone, which I think is a good thing, right? Because yes, while you may not see those crazy gains anymore that we've seen in the past, it will continue to grow, I have no doubt. But also it is less volatile, meaning you won't be losing 80% of your net worth, right? So that makes me more comfortable to allocate more money into it, because I know it will steadily grow, probably even faster than the S&P or NASDAQ 100 long term. But I know it's more stable than it was previously. As I said, I would rather put a large chunk of money into Bitcoin than in Tesla. That's just my personal choice, because we know that the supply of Bitcoin that will ever be available is fixed, right? Even with the halving and the addition, there won't be major changes anymore. It's not like millions more Bitcoin coming to the markets. But now with prices being so high, being talked about, institutional adoption, I think that's the major game changer here. Companies, institutions adopting it. As soon as we see a potential sell-off, those institutions will just buy it up, and it will keep the price sort of fairly stable, right? Like people like Michael Saylor, if he sees a dip, he will definitely buy it up and in large quantities, which will obviously not allow the price to drop significantly. So I feel also much more confident to definitely allocate a bigger chunk of my money in the future. Not right now, as I said, I still dollar cost average into it over time, but definitely much more than previously. Even at 40, 50,000 when it was there, you still kind of have these doubts in your mind. Is it really safe to allocate my money there? And so forth. A lot of people had their concerns and thoughts about it. But I think as it continues to rise, it only gains in popularity, and it becomes a real asset class that is less speculative and more a real asset class to allocate to. And you hear a lot of Bitcoin, a lot of ETF issuer, even BlackRock, telling their investors to have a certain allocation. I think they said last time 2% of investors' portfolio should be allocated towards Bitcoin. I mean, that's coming from them. I personally think 2% is too little, but again, that's just my thoughts. But I think the fact that those companies and institutions and ETF providers are coming out, making Bitcoin a real investable asset for investors, I think it's only going to continue to drive the price up going forward. Again, we will have short-term fluctuation, no doubt about it. That happens to every investable asset, right? We've seen that with gold, with any stock. That's normal. But long-term, I'm really confident that I personally think when we come back here to the biggest assets by category across the world, that definitely Bitcoin now at 2 trillion. I definitely will. I just can't see a world where it will not be flipping gold to be the most valuable asset in the world. There's just no doubt in my mind. I mean, unless there's some black swan event or quantum computing is so fast and sort of disrupts the Bitcoin. But it was also interesting when people said that. I think if quantum computing could theoretically crack the Bitcoin sort of blockchain and codes there, then I think we would have global problems, because then they could also crack literally all private institutions, governmental institutions, bank accounts, stockbrokers, what have you. So I think, as that develops, also the countermeasures will develop and will make Bitcoin stronger in the future. So I'm not worried about that. But what I am saying is that definitely, in order to flip gold, it would have to be, what is that, around 9x from here. 9 times 2 is 18 trillion. That would be higher than gold. So that would bring it to around 900,000. So again, personally, I would not be surprised to see Bitcoin at $1 million one day in the future. It will still take a couple of years. I'm sure about that. But it's also interesting. Yeah, I think with Trump now coming into office in January, previously, he sort of measures his success on a lot of policies and so forth and what people say about him, but mostly, let's say, the stock market, right? The NASDAQ 100 and the S&P, if that performed well under his tenure, well, he did a good job. Now, I think because he committed so much towards Bitcoin and crypto markets at large, I think he himself will take it very personal and make sure the Bitcoin price goes up, because a lot of people may have voted for him because, they're into crypto, right? And they want to see the things go up. So if that was not to happen, there would be a lot of backlash against him. So I think he will definitely use it as his own sort of KPI, performance goal, if you wish, to sort of measure his success in the long term. So I think, it will be interesting to see, but I think he will definitely always have an eye on the Bitcoin price to make sure it continues going up, because if it doesn't, then obviously it doesn't really, speak for his sort of policies that he said he would put forward to boost Bitcoin and crypto and make it, make US lead the charge when it comes to crypto and Bitcoin adoption around the world. So yeah, I'm quite confident that this will surely happen as we see him entering office next month already. How time is flying, no? I mean, it's crazy. Next week we have Christmas already. My goodness, unbelievable. Right, what else? By the way, guys, so I now started using Twitter, X. So if you haven't yet followed me, make sure to follow along. I'll try to be more active over here and just share some also different news that I find interesting and relevant. For example, we saw that one over here where the SoftBank CEO committed to investing $100 billion into the US. Which I think is really good for the US. Now, again, how much of that will happen in what time period? It's not like, they write a check and it will happen. It's like strategic investments over long term. But obviously in that interview, it was quite interesting when Trump asked him to, you're a rich man, why don't you double it to 200 billion? He kind of put him on the spot. He likes to do these things. But yeah, I think it will be, once again, really bullish for US economy, which is also one of the reasons why I keep on investing in the US, right? Because, when I look around, either I don't understand the markets, they're not transparent, with all due respect to China and what they're doing economically. I used to live there. I kind of know how things are going on there, and I would not trust all my money in that market over there. So I definitely want to, be invested in the transparent, strong market with a legacy, history, and a future, right? Strong history, performance, but also the bright future outlook. And I think that's certainly the case with the US. With regards to all the innovative and up-and-coming industries. Look at AI, look at chip manufacturing, whatever you're talking about. I mean, they're usually leading the charge, and that's why I'll continue to allocate my capital towards them. So definitely, I think, if you're into finance and investing and so forth, I think X is definitely quite interesting. And I used to be quite sort of not too convinced. I kind of only used it to kind of follow the news. But now, obviously, with Elon Musk being buddy with President Trump and Trump being a big fan of Twitter as well, I think they're here to stay. They're gonna push it more and more, and they're doing some good things. Honestly, now that I used it, actually, Grok. I don't know if you used Grok in recent times. It's sort of the Twitter free. I used to say it was Twitter. I mean X. It's so hard to get into the habit of saying X. But basically, you can even use it if you're a free user, I believe. So right now, I upgraded for the paid plan. They have a premium plan, so you see less ads and get some benefits. But technically, I think even on the free plan, you get the same access. And it's basically like ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity. And in some ways, I almost found it better because obviously it accesses a lot of the latest information through all the tweets or whatever, the access. So it has real life information available and pulls it also from there. Not only from there, but also, for example, why is Palantir a good company to invest in. And so basically, yeah, you can also do image generation. The image generation is actually really good, you know, so I like that very much. And the writing style is also cool. It doesn't sound as ChatGPT as ChatGPT sounds, sadly, sometimes. And what I like, they also pull in the sources. So you can see here, it pulls some of it from the websites, which is nice. So then you can click into it and see the actual source of that, as well as some, of course, as I said, Twitter posts over here. So you really quite like it. I mean, check it out. If you have been using X, it's free of charge. You can use that. I think there might be a limitation after some use for the free plan. But yeah, I've been really impressed. So now I kind of jump between ChatGPT, Claude, Grok. Maybe I should be using that more and more. I think Perplexity less and less, to be honest. I used it for a while, but now that ChatGPT also has projects, I use it more. So I think I probably should be doing a review update video on all the various AI that I use, because I think it's so powerful. So yeah, let me know if you would like me to do an update video on that. I think it's really interesting, and it's just something I generally I'm a big fan of. I forgot actually Gemini as well. For some things I use Gemini as well, so has some strong purposes as well. So which is nice, right? You have options, and that's obviously a good thing, I suppose. Right, with this, let's jump into some Q&A if we have any questions over here, and we will take it one by one. Let's see, we have XNY from the UK. How are you, mate? Good, thanks for dialing in. We have Lucas as well on board. Great to have you, mate. Mohammed on board. Matteo asking, who's the best broker for day trading? Good question. I personally don't do day trading, so I would not be the ideal person to ask that. I know there are what is it? I think on XTB you can do that. Some people even use eToro, but I love eToro for myself for long-term investing, but I think for day trading they're quite expensive. Their margin is, you want to look at the spread, right? Most of them, they don't charge you a commission, but they have a spread. So the difference between the bid and ask price, and those can be quite huge sometimes with some of the brokers. So yeah, I honestly wouldn't maybe go on Grok or ChatGPT and ask them, depending also on which country you live, right? So I would, I don't want to tell you something false here because I just don't do day trading. So yeah, definitely. I think on trading 2-on-2, they have that CFD option as well, where you could potentially day trade. But yeah, again, I may not be the most qualified person to answer that. Tony, thank you for reviewing Revolut X. I'm in the UK using it now. So clean, easy, and follow UI. Awesome to hear that, Tony. Very cool. I mean, based on your profile picture, you look like you lived already a few years, and I love that you're watching it and still using Revolut X. I mean, if that's really you in the profile picture, it's amazing. I recently met the founder of Reebok, actually, who is also from the UK. I think the gentleman was 89 years old. I met him here in Dubai, where I'm living. I was introduced by a friend, and I was genuinely surprised. I mean, obviously, he's a really well-off gentleman, right? I said, where are you living? I said, we're living in the plane. We're traveling all over the world. But he still invests in cryptocurrency. He uses AI for himself. And it's just, I mean, when I look at the person like this, I said, I want to be like that when I'm old, to still keep up with the trends, what's happening. And that's really inspiring. So yeah, Tony, well done for keeping up with the crypto as well. And I agree. I mean, Revolut X, while right now I don't personally use it because I'm based in the UAE, so it's not available here technically, and the on and off ramp is not perfectly ideal for US dollars, but I think if you're in Europe or UK, it's really a great option, and as you said, the interface is definitely really very nice. Davidson asking, which is more profitable, accumulating or distributing ETF? Look, there's really no one answer. It first of all depends where you live, because some countries, they treat accumulating and distributing differently. If you do have a tax advantage for one versus the other, then go with that one, right? Even though in most countries, as far as I'm aware, majority of countries treat it the same. So you'll be taxed either way. If you receive a dividend, you have to pay on that dividend your income tax, or most likely income tax. Or even if it's accumulated, meaning your ETF provider automatically reinvests the dividend on your behalf, you still theoretically, and practically being taxed on that amount that they reinvested. So you'll get that information from your broker in the annual tax report, and you would still have to pay that. So if that's the case, then it comes down to personal preference, which in my case is distributing. Excuse me, because I just like the feeling of getting paid, right? It's nice, every quarter from my S&P, only my S&P now. I used to have much more dividend shares in the past, but now it's only S&P 500. I'm being paid for that every quarter. And every quarter the amount keeps on growing. It's still a small amount. Imagine it's 1.2%, I believe, right now on the S&P 500. So even on a 1 million portfolio, if you're a lucky person to have 1 million in the S&P 500 invested at 1%, let's say 1% dividend, that would be, what is that, 100,000, $10,000 dollars, euros, whatever, let's say dollars in this case, per year, meaning like 850-ish per month technically. Based on that, if you still pay taxes, maybe you're left with 600. So you obviously don't invest in the S&P 500 for dividends. If you are pursuing dividend income and invest in dividend-paying companies, then obviously that question is not relevant, but I guess you're asking that because you're looking at the ETFs. So yeah, as I said, ultimately it comes down to, is there a differentiation in taxation? If not, then it's your personal preference. But both of them are equally profitable, considering or assuming that you would automatically reinvest your distributing, as soon as you basically get your profits paid out to you, your dividends, you reinvest the same day. Because what happens, why there is a differentiation in terms of profitability, because some people, they receive the dividend, but then they only reinvest a couple of days later, and then obviously the money is less time in the market. So that's something to consider if you were to consider long-term growth of your ETF. Can you explain the difference between S&P Vanguard VUSD and VUSA on Lightyear? I believe the VUSD, if I'm not mistaken, is the one is distributing and one is accumulating one. I don't know off the top of my head, or the different currency. So one or the other, not 100% sure by my head. Obviously, the one I bought on Lightyear is VUSA. I can just pull it up actually, 1 second. So let's have a look. But I believe it's a different currency. Let me pull it up over here, VUSD. Yep, so basically, exactly, the VUSD is also distributing, but it's in dollars, and the VUSA is listed in euros. So basically a different currency, and then it's up to you how you want to invest. I obviously I made the Lightyear account just to showcase how dollar cost averaging over time works on autopilot. My main portfolio is kept in dollars, and I buy it the SPY in London, which unfortunately is not yet listed on Lightyear. Hopefully it's coming soon. We have Michael. Hi, Kai, what do you think about global ETF, especially with the current all-time high of the US? What did I read? I think S&P 500, if I'm not mistaken, I don't want to mix up, but I believe the S&P 500 this year had an all-time high 57 times this year already. So, you can go back to any year compared to any all-time high we had in the past. We have always a new all-time high, right? That's just how the markets work. Now, again, to your point, sure. Some people say it's overvalued. Let's diversify into other markets. It's just when I look at other markets comparing to the US over the long term, they still often underperform. And let's imagine that we are at the all-time high in the US, theoretically, and then obviously by asking a question, you assume that there will be a sell-off, a drop in the prices. I just can't see a world where if we see a massive sell-off in the US, the rest of the world starts picking up like crazy, right? I just don't see that happening because they're so intertwined. Those American companies are global company by nature. So if all of them were to go down, I don't think that Japan and China and India will all of a sudden boom, right? I think they're so correlated that, I would not want to bet against the US, especially now with Trump coming to office. His main KPI, I think, is going to be economic output and the stock market performance, crypto performance. So that's why I'm happy to take the risk, and I would not know where else to invest outside the US personally. But again, it's certainly your money, your choices. Libos, yes, AI is the future. Yeah, again, I know a lot of people are pushing back on that. I'm still trying to convince my parents actually the benefits of AI. But at some stage, I also realized, it's like religion, right? You may have your own religion and you try to talk about somebody else and sort of maybe not convince them, but just share your thoughts why you follow a certain religion. But same with AI. I have so many people who push back, and often those of them a lot of them have never actually used it. And it's kind of sad. And that goes back to my earlier point when I see old people still embracing new technology, keeping up with the trends. For me, that's really inspiring. And, you know, if you just say something new is bad just for the sake of being new, I think it's unfortunate. And I agree that long term, again, like it or not, we see more and more companies already majorly cutting back on payroll, on manning, staffing, to replace a lot of positions with AI. As I said, I mean, when I did that Gemini 2 demo and it was walking me through literally where to click on my computer because it saw my screen. I mean, you can literally, if you're a company, you can have your own AI, train on everything that the stockbroker can do and cannot do, literally have a full database of possible questions and answers. And then literally a user of that platform can just go on, click on a support button and have AI speak to you in real time and see your screen and tell you where to click if you want to do a transfer, if you want to do something, and it knows everything about that platform. So why would you then need actual human beings to do the support function? It's just going to happen, right? In Dubai now also, and I think even China and other parts of the world, we have already full robotic restaurants, right? AI robotic restaurants, they call them, where you literally have no more person actually preparing or delivering the food. The chefs are basically, it's machines that sort of, put everything together, like an assembly line, all the dishes. Obviously, you have a certain amount of dishes. And then the food is delivered by portable robots. They have the food inside. They open the thing. You take it out, you pay with your card, and then you eat there. Again, it's maybe not the restaurant where I always want to go to, but sometimes to experience, you really feel that that's going to be the future, right? Because also people don't want to work anymore in such jobs. So yeah, it will of course bring some other problems down the line. What do we do with those people who are not anymore working and so forth? But it's just not going to disappear anymore. So I think that's definitely the way to go. Harold, nice to have you here as well. Good to have you. Do you recommend for long-term investment to invest in Tesla and Bitcoin in these times, or do you not recommend it for these times? Look, I mean, as I said before, I think, I don't want to bash Tesla. I think they've done an amazing job, and obviously with Elon Musk, you're going to be in good hands. The guy is a genius, right? I mean, really, most of the projects he touches, they turned out extremely well, even with X now. I must say that he really turned it around to a certain extent. When everybody said it's going downhill, actually, I found it now probably better than it used to be, just my opinion. Still, for me, automobile industry with Tesla, obviously they do more than just cars, but it is sort of their main business. It's not something I'm super passionate about and have the deepest knowledge. So I would not invest my money specifically in that one company. So if I had a choice between both of them, then I would go certainly with Bitcoin. And I'm in it for the next 10, 20, 30 years, right? I mean, heck, I might inherit that to my kids one day. And again, my goal is, because a lot of people ask me, so Kai, but so how do you, if you keep on acquiring more Bitcoin, you're not planning to sell? Because I'm not planning to sell. Literally, I'm not planning to sell. I'm not planning to buy anything with it, because I think even, for example, in Dubai, you can buy real estate with Bitcoin, right? I'll be crazy to pay a real estate now with the Bitcoin when I know that the price is now 100K, and I know for a fact it's just, supply demand laws, that in the future, the price will be higher. Let it be 500K, let it be 1 million. I'll be regretting that I used that. So instead, what I want to do is, and I think more and more banks and brokers are allowing users and investors to borrow against their Bitcoin holdings. So you use the Bitcoin as a sort of reserve, safety for the bank, and you can borrow against it. So let's say you have one Bitcoin, let's say $100,000, and you can borrow, depending which bank and so forth, up to 50%. So they would give you a loan up to $50,000, and you can then use that loan to pay something or do whatever you have to, and you pay it back in fiat money, in dollars or euros, whatever you borrowed in. And that's nice, because fiat money for me is less valuable than Bitcoin, because it's depreciating and losing purchasing power over time. So I think that would be my approach going forward. And that's what I will be doing. In Greece, accumulating is not taxed. The only thing that is not for sure. The only thing that is not for sure. So I'm not. So is it for sure or not for sure? But if it's not taxed, well, then again, that answers very quickly, very easily what you should be doing. You should definitely go with an accumulated ETF in this case. So if that's the case, and I said some countries are exceptions. So if that's the case in Greece, amazing. I mean, you should 100% go for that, because that will make a huge difference to your long-term gains if you go with a non-taxed ETF, basically. Harold asking, do you still recommend using Trade Republic as a broker for me living in Luxembourg? And would you still continue if you did not live in UAE? Good question. Honestly, no. It's very sad. It's not just about my experience right now, because if you haven't watched my video, unfortunately they closed my account. I still have no idea why. I'm assuming because I left the EU and they're not operating outside there. But it would have been nice to get an answer. I mean, I've been sort of promoting them for many times, and not even the fact that I'm promoting them in the past, but also used them. I had quite a bit of money sitting there. They decided to just close my account without any reason. So that was a bit unfortunate, but okay. But now with my wife, she had actually her biggest part of her portfolio in there, and okay, she got the same message. So I suppose it's related to the move outside of Europe, even though it's still strange to understand why they know that, from where they know it. It's a bit creepy when you think about it, because we have not informed them. But anyhow, and we tried to move her funds, because technically you can move funds and stocks out of Trade Republic to another broker. But unfortunately, when we tried that, and I tried to move it, and it's possible to move to Trading 212 and interactive brokers, only if the stocks are listed on the same stock exchange. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, Trade Republic buys it in Lange and Söhne, I believe, which is in Hamburg. And Hamburg is like a really small stock exchange actually globally, right? I mean, most people trade maybe Stuttgart in Germany or Frankfurt. And Hamburg is not very common. And unfortunately, I asked both Trading 212 and interactive brokers if they can transfer from Hamburg Stock Exchange, and they said unfortunately not. So even though, let's say you have a Coca-Cola share, it's available in both, Trade Republic and interactive brokers. The fact that they're not on the same stock market, you cannot transfer the share. So that was really upsetting and obviously really limiting. So, while you right now might be happy living in Luxembourg, you never know what the world will bring. Maybe one day you will move and then you want to transfer your shares to another broker, to another country. Well, you can't do that with Trade Republic. So for me, yeah, that was a red flag, and therefore I would honestly, it's a nice interface, and if you know you're going to be for the rest of your life living in that country where you are and can operate, then fine. But apart from that, I think there are better options out there. Angel, I hope I pronounced it correctly. I'm a 20-year-old student. I make 400 euros a month and would like to start investing. Would you be advised on this, looking on the long term, try some more riskier things? Look, Angel, I hope I pronounced it correctly. I mean, first of all, well done with 20 to start already investing. So that's really good. Most people do it way too late. They wait until they're 40, and then it's often already, it's still not too late. But obviously, the earlier you start, compound benefit will be your best friend. So that's good. Again, you have to obviously ask yourself how much of the 400 euros, if you earn 400 euros and live off that, I don't know if that's your investable amount or if that's your total income, because if that's your total income, then probably you're not going to be able to invest 200 of that, I suppose. So maybe if you invest 100 or even 50 euros, there's nothing wrong with that, right? You can use apps like Trading 212, Lightyear, where you can invest €1. So you can start from as little as possible. And I really recommend you to start slow and gradually and consistently over time. And you can try different things, right? Of course, especially when you're young and you lose, €5 on a Tesla trade, it's not the end of the world, right? I mean, obviously you're not going to lose it completely, but it might drop a little bit and so forth. While I'm personally, of course, I went through that journey myself. I started with individual tech stocks, then I had some dividend shares, then I did some meme coin trading and tried all different things. Sometimes I made some money, sometimes I lost some money, but in the end, I realized one thing, that obviously it's going to be very hard to beat the market consistently long term, right? Yes, you take some riskier positions, you make some money, but you're also going to lose some. So ultimately, I said, okay, I'm going to be fine with market returns, which for the S&P 500 around 10%, with Bitcoin a bit higher. But there I can allocate my money. And instead of trying to outsmart the market, right, to outperform it long term, which is going to be very difficult, especially if you're a student, you still have so many other things going on. Better focus on driving and improving your income. I think that's much better than investing. Let's say you invest 100 euros a month and you get, instead of a 10% return from the S&P 500, maybe you get a 15 or 20% return. It's still like, 20% on the 100 euros is 20 euros versus if you invest 1,000 euros and you make a 10% return on that, that's 100 euros, right? So you want to, I'm a big fan of increasing my investable amount over time. Obviously, you're still a student. You're not going to be, jumping and tripling your income anytime soon, but maybe find a time for a second job, find a side hustle, find ways to increase your income, and then invest that a bit more conservatively. Maybe, let's say 80% is conservatively into S&P, NASDAQ 100, Bitcoin, and then, the other 20%, why not? I mean, I'm not saying no, why not take some of the money and have a bit of fun, go some individual shares that you think will do well, put some in Tesla, put some into meme coins, get some experience, right? There's nothing wrong with that, but don't put all your money into that. I think that would be a bit reckless. So yeah, hope that helps. Good question over here. If I buy an accumulating ETF, can I switch to distributing one later on without selling? Unfortunately, you cannot. So once you with one, it's kind of, that's it. It's set and forget it. So the only other way is then to sell it later on and then put that money into, basically the opposite of what you bought previously. So that's something to keep in mind. And good question, before you buy, really understand taxation law. I think that's number one to understand, if it's the same taxation. Second question for yourself is your personal preference. Do you want to be bothered with reinvesting those dividends, or you just kind of want to have it on autopilot? Then go with accumulating. If you like the feeling of getting paid like I do, then stick with distributing. I have some Bitcoin on Nexo. Do you recommend purchasing Nexo and earning in their token? Since I don't plan to touch the crypto right now, the extra 7 could be quite juicy. Plan to purchase a Nexo and earning in their token. Since I don't. So yeah, basically, I think what you're asking, so the earning so if you have Bitcoin, you can either earn in kind, which means in Bitcoin, right? Or USDT, you would earn in USDT. So that's a setting on Nexo, which happens to be also my crypto exchange of choice. Really great platform. Or you can earn in Nexo token, which is their platform specific token. Most of the exchanges, they have their own tokens. Right now, I also earn in Nexo because yes, you get a higher, obviously, percentage. At some stage, though, I will switch back to in-kind. And that's a good question. Actually, one of the viewers actually recommended me also last time. While you do get a higher interest by earning in Nexo, the question is Nexo, are the Nexo tokens growing as fast as Bitcoin, right? If Nexo, let's say, stayed flat, right? Let's say you get a 2% higher interest by earning in Nexo, but the actual Nexo token theoretically stays flat. It doesn't appreciate in price. While Bitcoin, you earn a little bit less if you earn in Bitcoin, but actually the price of Bitcoin grows, 10x, not 10x, but by 20%. You still might be better off that way. So there is a certain cutoff point at which point I will switch back. I think right now I just want to go to the gold level. So I need to have 5% of my holdings in Nexo token, because then I can have a higher limit of Bitcoin. Because right now I have too many Bitcoin in my Nexo account, so not all of my Bitcoin amount earns that, I think, 4.5% interest, because it's only up to 40,000. So anything on top of 40,000, it's half of that, so only 2%. So that's why I'm earning in Nexo, to get a higher Nexo holding. And once I'm gold, I will eventually switch back to earning in kind. Hope that wasn't too confusing. Who do we have here? Anderson, sorry, you speak, I don't know what the language is that, in Portuguese or something. If you could speak in English, I will be happy to answer your question. Angel living with the family at the moment, very good. Yeah, start putting some money aside, and then long term you'll be able to look after them if you invest wisely. What's your view on Nevertheless going stealth to public? Are they still a competitive platform in your opinion? I think they've done a good job. I think it's good that they finally come out of stealth mode, because it was a bit at some stage felt a bit weird why they never really commit to going public. The app is nice. I right now wouldn't put more funds. I don't know if they enable, but because for a while they haven't had the option of withdrawing Bitcoin. You could kind of buy Bitcoin, but you couldn't withdraw it. So for me, it was kind of a bit weird. So let's see if that is a feature. Definitely, I'll keep an eye on it. I think it's a nice platform. The interface is great, but right now I'm not using them. James asking, finally, what is your view on Revolut backers offloading almost 1 billion in stocks recently? Seems to be a mixed review of good and bad from different people. I know also some other people who are working in unicorns in Europe, and it's something to consider, because obviously you don't know exactly when the company goes public, right? So keep in mind that some of those people might have worked there many years, 5 years, 10 years, and they get a I'm sure, a fair salary, but often they're paid in stock options, right? And that's kind of their bonus. So I know a person who really has a similar situation, and you sort of almost tied in because you don't know when it's the go public date exactly, which I believe they haven't announced anywhere yet. So it could be another 5 years, 10 years. So you would wait until that day, until you cash out. But somehow you still want to, maybe buy a house or kind of, treat yourself a little bit. So the fact that they cash out when now the valuation is, I think, what was it, 45 billion or something? I mean, makes sense to me, right? I mean, I'm sure they will continue to grow, but that's a huge valuation. So why not take some profits along the way? I understand not everybody's happy at it from the outside, but imagine yourself in their shoes. You work there 5 years, 10 years. I definitely would do the same, at least some of it, to take some profits and then maybe later on more if it was to go public eventually, right? But I think there's nothing wrong with that. Good. I hope I answered all the questions I think I have for now. So we're coming up on the hour. So maybe in this stream we'll not see what the Fed is coming up with the rate decision, but we'll probably see it later tonight or latest tomorrow. Let's see. I'm not sure if I'll do another live stream this year, unfortunately, because my parents are also coming to Dubai to stay over Christmas and New Year's. So I will continue dropping videos, but live stream probably only for the next year again, because I want to spend some quality time with them. I hardly ever see them. So it's nice. I want to show them around a little bit, where we live, Dubai and so forth. So that they have a good experience here. So please excuse me on that. But then from next year, I will definitely be back again, probably every Wednesday. I think it is a good day for that. On that note, also, guys, I once again really appreciate every one of you who watches, likes, comments. It really means the world to me. And it's so funny, just a year ago, I was still trapped in the corporate world, I would say. I mean, I had a nice job, running a luxury 5-star hotel, but very much different days and things to worry about and have to deal with. And now I get, to speak to you, help people out and sort of follow my passion. And it's really amazing. And obviously it wouldn't be possible without you. So I really appreciate it. And on that note, big thanks. Wish all of you a really happy upcoming festive season and happy holidays. Reflect on your year. I think it's been a really interesting year. I think it's important to sort of do a self-reflection. I'll probably also post a video on sort of my self-reflection, sort of my goals, what I did achieve, what I didn't achieve, and also plan for next year. I like to do this before the end of the current year to kind of write it down, right? Have the own KPIs of things you want to achieve, because if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So I really want to keep myself accountable, and I recommend all of you to do the same. But I'll probably make a video on that topic very soon. So with this, guys, once again, big thank you for all of you. Wish you a beautiful holidays ahead, and I'll speak to all of you very soon. Take care. Ciao.